Station Commander's log stardate 46910.1. A Cobarian freighter docked at Deep Space Nine today requesting medical assistance for a Cardassian passenger. Dr. Bashir diagnosed the man with Kalanora syndrome, a condition linked exclusively to a mining disaster at the Galatep labor camp during the occupation of Bajor. Major Kira believes this man may be a war criminal. Given the sensitivity of Bajoran-Cardassian relations and the historical weight Galatep carries, I've authorized his detainment pending further investigation. Kira is personally affected by this, understandably so. My job is to ensure we find the truth, fairly and by the book. Space, the final frontier. These are the debates of the Starship Hit or Miss, our ongoing mission to explore strange old episodes, to seek out deeper meanings, and to geek out more than most podcasts have before. Hello and welcome aboard. I'm your captain, Mike Wilson, and while my trusty first officer, DK, is unfortunately off again this week, currently stuck in a time loop caused by a faulty Bajoran orb, I'm not alone. I'm joined by a couple of guests. First of all, you just heard her on last week's episode, and when we're talking about Cardassians, you know she'd probably be here whether I invited her or not. I'm thrilled to welcome back returning guest and valued member of the crew, Lady Vean.
Hey, Mike, I'm here to occupy this podcast.
Oh boy, that's gonna get controversial quickly. But okay. And joining us is a first-time guest to hear on Miss Star Trek, but a guest who has appeared on our sister podcast, Silver Screen, a friend of Vean's and a new friend of ours. Please welcome Thomas. Welcome, Thomas.
Good morning. Excellent. Glad to be here. Ready to talk about this quite emotional episode.
Yeah, quite a heavy one. This week's mission takes us deep into the heart of Star Trek Deep Space Nine for an episode that's often spoken about in hushed tones of reverence. We're talking, of course, about Duet. It's a truly powerful story that doesn't pull its punches, and be warned, it might not be easy listening at times. It's one of those rare hours of television that transcends its genre and demands your full attention. We'll do our best to give it the discussion it deserves, but our episode discussion will be touching on sensitive topics that some listeners might find disturbing or uncomfortable, and if you know the episode, you'll know what we mean. So yeah, discretion is advised for that one. But yeah, before we dive into the heavy stuff, we're going to raise shields and set phasers to fun, because we have a new guest, and you know what that means. It means it's time for Hailing Frequencies Open.
Hailing Frequencies Open, sir.
So Thomas, you're new to the Trek podcast, so you have to unfortunately be subjected to our little almost Cardassian style interrogation.
Excellent.
I always say that, and it's never too bad. So, just opening with the first question then. What was it that first got you into Star Trek? Can you remember your first experience, and what was the first episode that made you think, oh, I think I like this, I want to watch more?
My dad. I grew up watching the original series, actually. So my first introduction was to that. First episode, I probably don't remember, but I've seen them all forward and back multiple times. So
that's fair enough. But you think it was your dad, and probably way back in the TOS days, maybe that got you started.
Well, yeah, I was born in the '80s, so my Star Trek is Next Generation, but
Yeah.
I grew up on the original series first.
Yeah, it's the same with me. I was born in the 80s, but my mum watched like videos of the original series, so it was the first one I saw, but I really got into it with Next Gen as well, so I think it's probably a similar story to you on that one. So, yeah, cool. Right, if you had to pick 3 episodes, or if you want to pick a movie, you can, to show somebody that you think represents the best of the franchise, what would they be and why?
Wow. Hitting them hard early, Mike. City on the Edge of Forever.
Excellent choice.
The Best of Both Worlds.
Another good choice.
And to pick a third? Wow. Does it have to be straight from the series, or can it be the movies?
No, you can pick a movie if you want. That's why I always say, like, if you want to chuck 2 episodes and a movie in, or pick 3 movies if you want, but whatever combination you like.
I would hate to disagree with your other lovely guest, but clearly the best and greatest movie of the Star Trek franchise is The Wrath of Khan.
Of course.
You're not my
This is
friend
common.
anymore.
Does she not agree? I love Wrath of Khan. I think it's an excellent movie. It's clearly the best.
It's not her favorite, though.
Okay. Yeah, but she's wrong. So.
Try telling her that.
Out of curiosity, what is your favorite then, Vean?
Generations.
What? That's one of the worst.
It's the best, and it's my favorite.
Okay. I mean, I'll let you off if there's sentimental value, but oh boy, that's a rough one to try and justify, I think. Anyway, cool. Everyone has their favorite. Everything's somebody's first time, I guess. As they say, and everything's one man's trash is another man's treasure. I'm sure there's somebody out there who loves Section 31, the movie, but I don't want to talk to them. Anyway.
I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I did enjoy it.
Okay, I'll let you off there. Fair enough. I really wanted to, and I just thought, oh, it's so bad. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, that's three fantastic picks. Best of Both Worlds, Wrath of Khan, Set You on the Edge of Forever. Can't argue with that. Three I would have probably potentially picked myself as well. So yeah, the next question then would be: do you have three favorite characters? And this is kind of a personal thing. It doesn't have to be characters that you think represent Trek. Just which ones talk to you more.
Wow. Which is funny because Vean asked me this the other month about some of my favorites. I mean, obviously the original trio of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. That was, that's obviously a favorite of everyone. I mean, I very enjoy Spock. There's just something about the Vulcans and logic and stuff that just appeals to you. Next Generation, I would lean towards probably Picard. Just another outstanding example of leadership and he's just appealing. Obviously the whole cast is great, so it's just really hard to single out any single particular one. Yeah. And then a third, gosh. See, the problem is I love all Star Trek, so it's really hard to narrow down your, just like I could pull favorites from every series, honestly. So I think from Enterprise, I could pull T'Pol. From DS9, you could pull either Garrick or somebody like, I would want to say Cisco, but he's not my favorite from DS9. So it's hard to say who. Odo, for some reason, always has appealed to me as a lawman. So it's just, I like them all. What can I say?
Okay, cool. I was waiting for what you were going to say because you almost came up with the exact same answer as me. When I was put on the spot, the three answers I gave were Spock, Picard, and Saru. I was like, "Oh, is he going to mention?"
Saru is pretty great, yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah.
So
okay.
While you guys were talking, I want you to know that the Cardassian Queen in Waiting, little Miss Mila, my lizard, who actually has a Cardassian backdrop in her tank, came out of her little hidey hole and is watching us, so nobody mess up.
Oh no, watched by the lizard people. It wasn't kind of fitting for these episodes, but okay.
Yeah, I think she has big feelings about all this.
Oh god, we're going to be getting into the feelings on this one, I think. But yeah, so so the big question, I have a couple more, but the big one I kind of have to come to next would be what's your favorite series then, Thomas, out of them all?
Probably would lean Next Generation, since that's my Star Trek I grew up on. But I mean, like I said, I've enjoyed all of them. I love them all. I mean, I know people have their issues with some of the new Trek and Enterprise and stuff, but I mean, what is it on the meme? I think all Star Trek is good Trek, or all good Trek is what was the all?
I can't remember.
Even the new stuff, especially the new stuff.
Yes, that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you. I like all of it. I mean, even the seasons that I don't like within overall series, I don't think there's a one single series that I would write off as something I don't personally like. And I would never sort of be one of those people, even if I didn't like it, that would be like, it's not canon because I don't like it, boo, or whatever.
Well, what I find interesting is that there is now more Star Trek that I don't like than I do. And, but I mean, that being said, I'm glad that the franchise got revitalized because it brought so many new people into the fandom. And, we've made such great friends and built such a great community. And even if it's stuff I don't personally like, I'm not going to tell other people, well, you shouldn't like it either.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's people that, there's people that only like one particular series, and there's people that like everything, and they're equally fans. You know what I mean? But I think in your case, I'd like to guess there's probably a fair percentage that you just haven't actually seen as well, mind you. That you say you don't like, but you haven't watched.
Well, yeah,
I have tried. Trust me, I have tried to get her to watch.
I know for a fact you would love Prodigy if you actually sat and watched it, but I just know that it's going to take, breaking your arm to get you to do it.
But then they cast Robert Beltran and Will Wheaton. So.
They both give career best performances in that series. I will say that much.
Yes.
Both are better than they were at any point in live action during Prodigy season 2.
Well, it wasn't their acting so much as their being horrible people, and I don't want to give them a paycheck.
Yeah, admittedly, that's true. But if you start not watching anything with horrible people, then we're going to have nothing to watch.
Oh my God! I almost spit my drink out, Mike.
I mean,
all right.
Sad, but true,
I agree. I am going to give Prodigy a chance at some point. Anyway, Duet.
Prodigy is excellent.
I think you should. It's Voyager season 8 in all but name, and yeah, it's a fantastic show. I know you were put off a little by some of the animation style, which was kind of almost a barrier for me as well, because it looked a bit childish and a little, I don't know, some of the character designs weren't the greatest, but you get past.
But it was marketed for the younger generation, so that's why.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Plus, like I said, it doesn't, after like one episode, you pretty much just settle in and you're fine with it. So.
My mom, who does not like animation and cartoons, absolutely loved it.
Cool. That's fantastic. We've done our full review, so it's online. If anybody wants to check it out, you can go back on the channel just a few weeks, actually. We did a full Prodigy Series 1 and 2 review. That was me, DK, Nita, and Connie.
Connie, right?
So,
Yay,
yeah,
Connie.
it was a fantastic group of 4, actually. We did really well to try and squeeze all 40 episodes into 2 hours of review, so quite proud of ourselves for that one. But yeah, awesome. And so, yeah, the next question will be, since we're looking at specifically Cardassian and Bajoran themed episodes, we kind of have mixed them together, or I have. Is there anything that would fit into that theme that you wanted to shout out as being a personal favorite or being the best, Thomas?
In terms of episode, or
just episode story arcs, if you wanted to go that way, or even is there a character that you particularly want to shout out as being the best that's a Cardassian or a Bajoran?
Well, clearly it's Garak. I mean, obviously there is no finer Cardassian than Mr. Garak. Plain simple Garak. Goldacott obviously was an excellent villain and a role to play as far as Cardassians are going. Kira Nerys is your go-to Bajoran for this series. So, but like I said, I will get into it shortly. But I mean, this is one of those, I think, outstanding performances, and I think one of the episodes that you look at for DS9, not only for the first season is its best episode, but across the entire series is one of the most standout episodes of the series.
Yeah, it is. It's true. Just before we carry on any further, Vean, did you get a chance to listen to the Delta Flyers podcast I sent you, or did you not bother?
I didn't want it to influence what I would say, so I'm going to listen to it after.
That's cool. Normally I wouldn't myself. It's just that I've been listening to them anyway, so I remembered it from however many weeks ago it was. And it's an interesting one because they have Nana on as a guest. So she's actually talking about her kind of process in the episode and everything, which I'll drop in as we start talking about the acting and bits and pieces, because the episode's there, so why not mention stuff from the horse's mouth, so to speak? Not that I'm calling her a horse, obviously, but yeah, there's some interesting things to come out of that. It's always fascinating as well listening to Robert and Garrett watching DS9 for the first time and picking up on stuff that we know they haven't come to yet, but we know they're going to develop into storylines. So anyway, I don't know why I'm plugging somebody else's podcast. They're not going to plug mine, but anyway, we'll move to the next bit of the episode then, which is, we're still not getting into the heavy episode just yet. We're going to hit the section of the podcast that gives it its name. And we're going to enter the hit or miss section.
What about my performance?
I'm not a drama critic.
So, Vean, you know what to expect. Thomas, you don't. So, just to give you and any new listeners a quick heads up, the hit or miss section is basically where I pick random things from anywhere in the Trek universe. It can be anything at all, and put it up on screen, ask if it's a hit or a miss. We debate back and forth and try to come to a consensus with that, and then move on to the next thing. And yeah, we'll probably get through about 4, I would think, maybe 5 at a push things. And this season, just to mix it up, I've been deciding that I'm going to come up with a big sort of shortlist and then ask you guys to pick numbers so that there's even more randomness to it than just even me picking random stuff. And again, there will be some stuff mixed in there that'll fit this theme, so it will be Bajoran or Cardassian themed, but not everything, because that would get boring. So with that in mind, Vean, did you want to go first and pick a number for me?
I always want to go first.
Okay, I have 9 things today, so you can pick a number between 1 and 9. I have lots of choice.
Do number 9.
Okay, number 9. Number 9 is an episode. It is not an episode to do with this theme, and it's an episode of Voyager, a 2-part episode, hit or miss for the killing game. And
oh my God. I love this episode so much. I think I wore out the VHS that I taped it on off of TV back in the day. I used to make my friends watch this episode who like didn't watch Star Trek, and my sibling, my brother, and my cousins and stuff, because I love this episode so much. And I do think it's relevant to the episode we're discussing today, frankly, thematically. So I think it's an interesting one to bring up. But I love this episode. I know a lot of people don't like the sort of, oh gosh, how do I want to say the holodeck episodes, so to speak. But I just think the use of it was brilliant. I think the Hirogen taking over the ship and the whole subplot of how they were going to fight back. And no, I love this episode. I think it's brilliant. Oh, that's plus we get to hear Jerry Ryan sing. So, you know, that's always great.
We do, absolutely.
Quite lovely.
Yeah. Very good stuff. So yeah, Thomas, hit or a miss for the killing game?
Definitely a hit.
Awesome. Any reasons why that Vean hasn't already touched on that you wanted to mention?
No, she pretty much named them all.
Cool. Fair enough. Yeah, I have to agree. I have to say here, I think it's a fantastic episode. I can't really say much more than what you did already, Vean, except that I don't love holodeck episodes or holodeck malfunction episodes, but I think it put such a unique twist on it and combined it with the Hirogen that we kind of seen. They developed a kind of ongoing thing for a couple of episodes already, so it was a fascinating twist on that. And then the idea that they were trying to curb their hunter instincts by hunting, you know, holograms, but then they also had the people in there and everything, and just truly I thought it was fascinating. And then, as you said, it didn't even occur to me that naturally there are the Nazi parallels in the episodes we'll be discussing, as well as in this one, which, you know, it gets into. And yeah, plus, as you said, it's nice to see, I don't know why, but I always like to see characters acting out of character when there's an excuse for it. So seeing them play like members of the French resistance and
or Neelix like being a Klingon, how awesome was that?
I was just thinking how kick-ass Kate Mulgrew was as like French resistance leader.
Oh God, I hate that white suit though. Oh man, I know. As a bisexual, I should love it because all the queer women do, but I can't stand that white suit. Ugh.
Well, I wasn't complaining. You know,
she wears it well.
She does wear it well. It's just not doing anything for me. That's all.
It worked for me, I'll be honest, but yeah.
I liked her better in the black when they were breaking into the Nazi headquarters. That was a look.
Yeah, I liked everything Jerry Ryan wore in the episode. The glamorous dress, the little Kiki berry and sundress kind of situation.
I tell you, the moment, my favorite moment in this episode is when they've all got their memories back and they know who they are, and the Nazi officer tells her to sing and she refuses, and he says, "Sing or die." And she goes, "Then I'll die." I just, oh my God, it was such a powerful moment.
I love when it clicks, like they're kind of fixing whatever the implant is. So it clicks like mid-song. And it's incredible acting that she's literally,
it really is.
Click, and then just stop. I am unwell. I have to go. It's just...
If I could just expand on that for a moment, because, you know, I was a teenager when the show was on, and I knew what they were doing bringing 7 of 9 on. They wanted, like, the show's ratings were not great. They had to bring on a hot woman in a cat suit for young men to drool over to up the ratings. And I knew that, and I was insulted. And I understand why Kate Mulgrew was upset, especially because it became the 7 of 9 show. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, it became her show. And I wanted so much to dislike the character. But Jerry Ryan's acting is so goddamn good. And she's such a compelling character. And it's little moments like that. And it's like, this woman is not just a gorgeous face and a hot body. This woman is a really talented actress. And she's such a wonderful addition. I'm mad at what they did, but I'm like, damn, did it work out?
Anyway, Thomas, it's your turn to pick a number between 1 and 9, with the exception of 9, because we already had that.
I'm going to go with lucky number 7.
Ooh, number 7. Okay, this might be very short because I don't even know if Vean knows this character. I suspect probably not. I'm hoping you do, because it's from New Trek, very new Trek, and not anything to do with Cardassians or Bajorans, etc. But it is, at the very least, I suspect it's an actress who you'll love, Vean, so maybe you can give us some thoughts on that one. Hit or miss for the character of Commander Pelia from Strange New Worlds season 2 onwards. And Thomas,
She's fun. I like her. She's fun. I like her. Definitely a hit for me.
Oh, her. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, her. So yeah, Thomas, what do you like about the character then?
Well, I like how they I like that, like, she's been around for a while, to say the least. She's a Lanthan, I think it's Lanthanite. And so I just think she's a fun character. She's good wit. So I think she's added nicely to the cast ensemble there.
Yeah, cool. Vean, are you familiar at all with this character?
I am a tiny bit. I have actually seen a little bit of Strange New Worlds.
I'm guessing you at least know who Carol Kane is.
Absolutely, sure. I do. Amazing actress with an incredible history. But I'll tell you what I like about this is that they're introducing a new character on the ship who's not in their 20s. Because,
yeah, exactly.
So many times the main cast is, 8 20-year-olds and a captain. And so it's nice to see, because a command structure would have some older individuals on it with experience, Oh,
1,000,000%, yeah. Yeah.
So I like that they expanded into that territory. I don't remember I don't think the few episodes I've seen had much of her in it, but I'm going to say a hit.
Yeah, I think a hit firstly for the reasons you said. I love the kind of reverse lack of ageism involved, and it is nice that they're kind of like, oh, you were an instructor and you know everything about engineering because of all this experience, and you're a commander, and yeah, naturally you're gonna therefore need to be a decent age. Like you said, I'm sick of these child prodigies that's like, oh, you've worked your way up the ranks and you know everything about the engines and you're 21. Like, off. Just, come on, man. But yeah, the fact that she's secretly like actually thousands of years old or whatever is an extra little kick to that. And I think again the casting kind of does a real kind of funky thing with that and brings that to life. And again, it's Carol Kane. She's never put a foot wrong for me. So even with the funky accent and the kind of, I guess, playing for comedy at times, it kind of works because it doesn't go over the top with it. And I just think, yeah, it's an excellent addition. And again, like you, it's nice that not just that it's not a young character, but that it's not like a character that we know from TOS, because I got mighty sick of them introducing like, oh, this is, remember that one character you saw for 3 episodes there, the chief medical officer? Oh, and look, we're introducing Scotty now. And oh, look, this is, Jesus, let's have some other characters at least, and don't kill them off. Anyway, spoiler alert. But yeah.
Justice for Hemmer.
Overall. Indeed, justice for Hemmer. Anyway, he got to be a K-pop singing Klingon, so we'll forgive him. So, yeah, I'm going to say 3 hits for Pelia, and I think we pretty much agreed on hit for the killing game, 3 out of 3. Vean, we're back to you to pick a number between 1 and 9, with the exception of 7 or 9. 7 of 9.
We're number 1.
Number 1 is one that's been there since last week, and it is tied very heavily into the theme of this particular season. In fact, probably the most tied into both sides of this theme. It's a character, hit or miss for the character of Tora Zial.
Oh my God, my car is named after her. I love Zial. I love Melanie Smith particularly. I think she gave the best performance and the most nuanced. But I love Zial from start to finish. I have actually gotten into it with people on the internet about her many, many times because of the relationship with Garrick, which I love. I loved her relationship with Garrick, and people are like, oh, he didn't even like her. I'm like, he 100% did. I don't know what show you guys were watching, and I think people get annoyed because so many people ship, for lack of a better word, Garrick and Bashir, and Zial gets in the way of that. And I think for that reason, people get annoyed and they try to pick on the age gap. And I'm like, okay, so the age gap is okay when it's Garrick and Bashir, but it's not okay when it's Garrick and Zial. Just admit she's getting in your way. But I think she's a great character.
Technically speaking, if we're talking about like Dax and anybody, there's like a hundreds of years age gap if you're going to be really arsy about it.
It's a stupid argument to have. And I just have no respect for anyone who has that side of the argument. So I think she is an underrated character in that people really woobify her. They really act like she's a pure, innocent little girl. And it's like, no, she's a woman in her 20s who survived labor camp. You know, she is not a wilting little flower. She is really a tough individual. And the way she stands up to her father and the way she can manipulate him when she needs to. And, you know, I think she is inherently a good person and a kind person, which is, you know, even more impressive considering she was in that camp. But people think she's like a kid or a teenager. She's not. She's older than that. They didn't age her up. She was 13 when she went into that camp, and they got her out, 7 years later? So she'd be 19. So by the time, you know, she dies, she's in her early 20s at that point, and she's not a child. She's a really resilient, smart, strong young woman. And I think, you know, unfortunately, they couldn't nail down her character until they got to Melanie Smith, hence the rotating door of actresses. But they were all good. But I think Melanie Smith really had a handle on it. Yeah, and let me clear one thing up. Melanie Smith requested to be written off the show because she couldn't stand the makeup.
That was exactly why the other two didn't want to do the show.
Yeah, she couldn't tolerate the makeup anymore, so she requested to be. So she knew her character was going to die. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, they had to kill off a woman to give Ducat motivation. I'm like, well, no, she wanted off the show. So it wasn't quite as misogynistic as that, although the writers of Deep Space Nine and the executive producer can be incredibly misogynistic. This was not a case of that, and I just want to clear that up.
Yeah. I do kind of see the argument that some people make, though, that like they were scared to make Garak fully gay with Bashir, so they wrote a woman in, and it's kind of like, is she a bit of a beard? I don't fully agree with it, but I can see how people would make that argument, and I get the feeling that probably was the intention of the likes of the exec producer. Or the
bisexuals exist, you know.
Well,
you can like both.
So, Thomas, what are your thoughts on Ziyal?
Hit. For all the reasons previously mentioned, and I definitely love the, you know, the interest there that they intertwined with Garak and her, and I definitely hate who killed her off.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a traitor. She did need to die for it, but you know.
Boo, I say.
Exactly. No, she wasn't a traitor. She did nothing wrong. She was lovely. Oh dear. But yeah, no, I like the character a lot. I don't know, I like all the actresses for what they do, and I have just, again, not to plug the other podcast, but I just listened to this week's Delta Flyers, which was Indiscretion. So it was Ziyal's introduction with Marco Limo guesting, and they were all praising Saya Baten, who was a great actress, don't get me wrong, but
she was
yeah, but like you said, I think the only the actress that drew me to the character more was when they got to Melanie Smith, and that was when you kind of fell in love with her. There was a certain charm there, and I could understand how Garak would fall for her as well, even if whatever the behind the scenes reasons were. So I was good. I genuinely had kind of come to care about that character. Sorry, Thomas, you were saying.
There's something about those Cardassian women.
Not all of them. No, let's not go there. There's a few of them I wouldn't want
all of them.
No, let's not go carried away. But no, I mean, like I said, I'd been charmed by her, and I didn't see it coming. The big death, and I was devastated when it happened. So yeah, and that still gets me. I just remember being utterly like in tears watching Sacrifice of Angels, and like no. But yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So
props to Marco Limo for that scene where he's holding her. Oh God, he acted his ass off in that scene.
Like I said, you have sympathy for your enemies in this case, because that's what he's your protagonist for a lot of the series. But you feel so bad for Gul Dukat, for losing his daughter like that, and just the effect that it would have on you.
Oh, what kills me about that though is he and Damar never really talk about it. Like the next time they see each other, Dukat's like, it's not your fault, whatever, and then they just like dude, he killed your daughter. You're just okay with that?
Oh, I'd have killed him.
At that point, Ducat was so far gone. To be honest, though, it was kind of like, I think his sanity had slipped beyond the bounds of caring at that point. So we'll give one more of these a try then. Thomas, did you want to pick another number between 1 and 9, but not 1, 7, or 9 because they've got?
We'll go 4.
Okay, 4 is a DS9 two-parter, so it is connected, I suppose. It is actually connected to the theme. Something pretty important does happen in it. It's one of my favorite two-parters, but it's one that nobody really talks that much about. It's from late in season 5, and it is the two-parter titled "In Purgatory Shadow / By Inferno's Light." I'll put a picture up, but there's like a million things happen in the episode, so I just had to pick a random picture of something that happens. If you need a refresher, I'm happy to give one. But in the meantime, Thomas, do you remember this episode?
Yes. Now, seeing that picture, I do. Though that is an absolute. I enjoyed that. That's a hit for me. If I remember, because this also involves Garrick working in the tight spaces too to help them try to escape from there. So, I mean, it's an excellent reflection of his character overcoming his claustrophobia. So, no, that's definitely a hit for me.
That's what I mean. That was just one moment in the episode, but it's so incredibly good, and there's so much going on. Like Worf and Garak get captured, taken to the Dominion internment camp. They find Bashir, who's been there since before the uniforms changed, revealing that he's a changeling. They find the real Martok, after having revealed earlier in the season that he was a changeling. You have the Cardassians join the Dominion in this episode, which is a pretty big moment in part 2 of the story. And I just think it's so good. So much goes on. So yeah, Vean, over to you. Hit or miss for this episode.
Of course, as soon as you said the titles, I knew. I was so worried you were going to talk about one of the Klingon two-parters, and I was like, God, don't make me.
I was waiting to make fun of you for that.
You said "In Purgatory Shadow," and I'm like, yes. Okay. I love Inabrantain so much.
You're not my son.
Yeah. Oh God, what a great scene. What a moving, powerful performance between Andy Robinson and Paul Dooley.
He's incredible. Andrew Robinson playing. I've never seen anybody who hasn't got claustrophobia play it quite so well. Like I felt nervous watching him.
He has claustrophobia.
Does he? Oh, I do apologize. I didn't know that. But
I was going to actually bring that up. Is that was how that got incorporated in? Is because Andy Robin Exley has claustrophobia and almost didn't play Garrick because the makeup made him claustrophobic. But then when he saw himself in the makeup mirror, was like, okay, I can do this. And boy, did he. No, I love this episode. It's a great episode, and it actually has a couple of moments of really good humor, like where they're like, I wonder what that changeling is doing right now. And he cut to changeling Julian bringing like a sandwich or something to O'Brien. Like, it is a great episode. And when they're releasing all the Cardassians because they've joined the Dominion, and they're like, oh, not you. To Garrick, you stay here.
A mistake. Last time I checked, I was a Cardassian, but not a very popular one, I'm afraid. At least not with the head of the new Cardassian government.
That's it.
Ducat. Yes, I know every inch of dialogue of this. I even love the bit with the where the Breen kills their guards, and the Romulan lady's like, "My people have a saying: never turn your back on a Breen."
Oh, but I'll tell you, one of the best moments is actually Martok and Worf. And it's to touch on what Tommy was saying about the, Garrick going in the wall and doing that, praising him for, his bravery, and basically talking about how fighting a mental illness is just as brave as being in the battlefield. And I thought that was a really nice commentary.
I love Worf though, so I love that part of this episode where it's like, I yield, I can't defeat the Klingon, all I can do is kill him. And that no longer holds my interest. Yes. Anyway, I know you're not a fan, Vean, but I love him anyway, all the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's safe to say 3 major hits for that one as well. So, yeah.
Have we had any? We haven't had a single miss. I don't think that's ever happened before.
4 complete 3 out of 3 hits all the way through. That might be a first for the podcast. Normally there's at least one little kind of, I'm not sure. But not just 4 hits, as well, 4 like really big hits. So awesome. Right. So yeah, that's covered all of that, and so we kind of have to get into the bulk of this episode, which, as I say, is the main episode review, and that's going to be the DS9 episode Duet.
Spark analysis.
We've given ourselves a chance to compose ourselves and have a bit of lightness, but there is still something that we can do to kind of, I guess, ease ourselves into this. As you will know if you've been a regular listener, I am a fan of the Delta Flyers podcast, and I ripped off their idea wholesale of doing a limerick and a haiku for each episode. And as is traditional, I have done that for Duet, even though it was very difficult trying to, and certainly there's no humor involved in them, I'll tell you that now. It's not particularly funny, but I have both. So once again, I'm going to ask, which would you like to hear first, limerick or haiku? Thomas, I'm going to ask you first, because I always usually ask you.
For what again?
Either a limerick or a haiku that I've done for the episode. Which would you like to hear first?
Let's go with the limerick.
Cool. Well, Vean, did you want to say this?
I always like to start with the haiku and close with the limerick, but Tommy's the guest.
I was going to say, well, I like to start with limericks, sort of. Yeah, the haiku is quite deep, so I think I'll save it till the end. So, yeah, my limerick for this episode is as follows. A man bore the mask of a beast, confessed to war crimes at the least, but guilt was his own, though the truth wasn't known. His soul sought justice, not peace. I have no idea where these come from, by the way. It's like I'm possessed by the soul of a poet. But so yeah, that was the limerick. Try and to remind me to do the haiku at the end. But yeah, very intense, very rough episode, as I said. So we are going to dive into it, and there are themes that might be a little awkward. If you are listening, as I said, viewer discretion advised. But we will start, as we always do, with a little bit of behind-the-scenes information for this episode. So again, if you have anything you wanted to chime in with, so that it's not just me chatting, feel free, either of you guys, Tommy or Vean. But otherwise, I'll get started and tell you that the original pitch for this episode was by Lisa Rich and Jeannie Carrigan-Fauci, and was based on the simple conflict inherent in the idea of someone having to defend their worst enemy. Carrigan-Fauci later explained the basic premise was what would happen if you had to defend your worst enemy. What would you do if you had to be responsible for his life? There's so much inherent conflict in that concept, and of course it was only natural to use Kira and a Cardassian in that situation and have them both learn something about each other. Michael Piller recalled, Duet was pitched to us by two of our interns who wanted to do something about a war criminal in the context it was pitched. It didn't turn me on. The idea of a war criminal found aboard DS9 seemed to be an interesting concept, but at first it seemed to me to be a judgment at Nuremberg court show. Since the first season of DS9 had already included court episode Dax, the show's writing staff didn't want to do another so soon. Fair enough. The intent of the episode was to establish the Cardassian occupation of Bajor as a metaphor for British, Japanese, and German imperialism circa World War II. It's also been suggested that this may be the first episode in which the Cardassian occupation of Bajor can be seen as alluding to the establishment of Israel and Nazi persecution of Jews. So nice light topics that are not anything to worry about these days, he said with tiniest hint of sarcasm. Oh boy. So, this episode was written to be a bottle show to balance out more expensive episodes in DS9's first season, such as The Premier, Emissary, and The Storyteller. Duet was conceived as a direct result of that consideration. On the next to last show of the season, remembered Peter Allen Fields, they said, Pete, can you do us a favor? Can you please write a show that costs nothing? I said, of course, I'd be glad to. And then you leave the office because you've said yes to your boss and you die 1,000 deaths. I think it ended up all right, to be honest. Nothing to be ashamed of. Ira Stephen Bear has cited this episode as the first example of the so-called, quote, long Cardassian monologue. I love this. You'll appreciate this, Vean. He said, Cardassians love to speak. Garak loves to speak. Inar Brintain loves to speak. Dukat loves to speak. Very slowly. And certainly Maritza loves to speak. Can you confirm, Vean, as a Cardassian representative, do you love to speak?
Oh, I could talk all day long. Not only do I love to speak, I love being listened to.
We can't promise that.
Well, I am a fan of listening to her, so there's that. I'm sure she appreciates it.
So you're secretly an Elorian.
Oh, did I not accuse you of that, Tommy?
You most definitely did.
Uh-huh.
Behave, you two. Anyway, this episode marks the first mention of the Shakar resistance cell, which will become important, and it reunited Quark actor Armin Shimmerman with Duet guest actor the late great Harris Yulin. Years prior to the making of this installment, they'd been acquaintances and worked on Broadway theatre together. Both Armin Shimmerman, Quark, and then our visitor Kira counted this episode among their favourites. Shimmerman noted that the episode comes together with the writing and the directing and the acting all coalescing perfectly. It's a fascinating episode dealing with Bajor and nationalism and Cardassian war crimes. I love these kinds of scripts because they deal with social issues placed in the context of space. yeah, can't really disagree with that. And I think we can touch on several metaphors that it could be a reference to, although that's not really as necessarily explicit within the script, and it's not, that's not what we're talking about more so much as the individual personal aspects, I think, when we get down to it. One thing I did find fascinating, and I kind of have to bring this up because I just find it it's a weird unsolved controversy about this episode. In April 2022, the episode found itself in the middle of a latter-day yet short-lived controversy between fans and former production staff on the one hand and the Trek franchise on the other. The conglomerate was in the middle of the process of pulling all Trek productions from third-party platforms in favor of streaming service Paramount Plus for exclusive digital rights, or viewing, sorry. However, when DS9 was pulled from streaming service Netflix and moved to Paramount Plus, it was discovered that Duet was the only episode missing from the catalogue. Considered one of the best early episodes, fans and former production staff alike demanded an explanation from the franchise, which a Paramount Plus spokesperson explained as being a, quote, streaming rights issue. Pressure from fans continued, and the episode was restored, seemingly without streaming rights issues, to the catalogue after former showrunner Ira Steven Behr weighed in personally on April the 15th. The controversy lasted for less than a week, but no explanation has ever been forthcoming for what the real reasons were for the episode's initial omission from the streamer's catalogue. I find that fascinating. What the heck was going on there?
Was it the PC police?
Really?
I have to wonder, because I know there were certain episodes of other shows, I won't get into which ones, but when they transferred from whatever to streaming, there were certain episodes that were pulled because people were being overly sensitive about, and I don't mean to say what people should find offensive or not, but I'm talking about stuff that was making a commentary, like Duet is making a commentary. It's not glorifying something inappropriate or prejudiced or wrong. There were certain episodes of Frasier and the Golden Girls that were temporarily pulled for reasons of cultural sensitivity, when it's like, no, this is a commentary, not you know what I mean? So they did eventually get reinstated, as Duet did, but I've often wondered if that was really what was behind the scenes.
That's weird. I can't really see anything that you could be particularly offended by in this. It's not, as you said, it doesn't certainly glorify anything that you would want to, anyway, no, who knows? I have a feeling it might have just been, as you said, overly cautious people that were like, oh, this is a rough episode, so let's just play on the side of caution and not put it up, not realizing that it was wildly popular and you weren't going to get away with that. Anyway, so before we dive fully into the sections that we normally talk about, like writing, plot, directing, VFX, various bits and pieces like that, I always like to start by asking if you can remember the very first time you saw this episode and what impact it had on you at the time. And since you're the guest, Thomas, I'll ask you first. Can you recall the first time you saw this?
Not so much, only in the sense that my memory fails me the further back I go. Like I said, I can remember watching this stuff and watching it over and over and over. I used to be able to name off episodes like within the first 5 seconds of it being on. But I mean, as far as the impact and stuff, I mean, obviously it's, I think, it's a good commentary on, what happens in war and, the roles that are played on both sides of that, whether you're the aggressor or you're the defender. I think it's again, like I said, it's a parallel to, the Nazis and obviously the Cardassian occupation with the forced labor camps, which I think we're given more insight into, obviously with concentration camps and stuff. So, you're also solidifying, that, the Cardassians of being the aggressors, the arrogant species that we're to loathe, essentially, and just to how awful they are to the Bajorans. There's definitely some things that are hit on in this episode with that.
Yeah, and now that you've mentioned that, actually, I'm starting to wonder if part of the reason that it didn't make it is because that you are invited by the end to sympathize with Cardassians specifically, not the ones that did the workers, but to not like tar everyone with the same brush, so to speak. And I think that's very politically divisive of a thing, especially these days, where anyone of a certain nationality that you happen to think of as quote unquote the enemy would be considered as such, and it's not always as cut and dry as that. So
no, there's definitely shades of gray in there.
What's kind of interesting is that Bajor is only one of many planets that were occupied by the Cardassians, and we never talk about any of the other ones. I just think that's really interesting. It's like, do we not talk about it because they were never liberated, or do we not talk about it because, like, what? Like, why don't we ever touch on the fact that this isn't the only time they've done this?
I think, judging from, well, just from this episode, because it happens to be the one I recently watched, I think part of it is that the Bajorans were so completely unaggressive. You know, they were an entirely spiritual people. They had no weapons. They had no, interest in conquest or colonization or anything like that. They were just a nice, peaceful people. And the Cardassians were like, nice planet, we'll take it. So they were, well, can't really defend ourselves, can we? I suppose we can try and pray you away, but that isn't going to achieve much. Although,
that was the tagline for Mars Attacks, by the way.
Yes, it was. Actually, that's nice planet, we'll take it. Absolutely. But yeah, so no, I can kind of see where that, and as you say, I mean, on a outside the text level, it's also because that's where what we're using is this metaphor, so it's kind of handy to stick with it, and as opposed to introducing all other things which could confuse the issue in universe and in fiction. But yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, Vean, I haven't asked you yet. So, what do you remember the first time you saw this, and what your initial thoughts were?
I do. I actually watched Deep Space Nine out of order because I tried to watch it when it first aired and I was not into it. And I tried to watch it a couple of years later and I wasn't into it. Now, we don't have to get into that whole story, but I did finally start watching it because my then partner, it was their favorite series and they would be playing it and I'd just be walking through the room going, oh God, this. And then it did, as it got into season 5, 6, 7, kind of get me interested. So I came back to the beginning and, watching it, kind of knowing how the series ended. So it was easier, I think, to slog through some of the real clunkers of the early seasons. But I do remember this because Harris Yulin, who is, of course, an amazing actor, never gives a bad performance. And I've seen him in many, many things give very serious, very highly acclaimed performances. But whenever he raises his voice, as he does as Goldar Heel, I can only see the judge from Ghostbusters 2. So I was watching this going, oh, it's the judge from Ghostbusters. So it was hard for me to kind of take this episode seriously the first couple of times I saw it, even knowing content and how serious it is. It would just, I had a hard time separating that out. But now that I am able to do that, of course, I can appreciate the heaviness of the episode. I found interesting when you were talking about your sort of recap of Duet, before we got into this, is you were talking about how it reunited him with Armin Shimmerman. And the best performance I have ever seen Harris Yulin give was in an Arthur Miller play that was translated for television. It was filmed for television. I want to say maybe the 70s. I don't know the year, excuse me. But it was called Incident at Vichy. And it is actually about a bunch of Jewish and Romani and political dissidents who've been rounded up by the Nazis and are getting ready to be interrogated about basically whether they're going to be sent to a death camp or not. And it stars Harris Yulin, but it also stars René Auberjonois as a Jewish actor who's trying to lie about being Jewish so he doesn't get rounded up. And do you know who plays the Nazi interrogator?
I'm guessing Armin Shimmerman, surely.
No, but my little profile pic is a clue.
Oh, okay. Andrew Robinson?
He does. So I just thought, how interesting that you get to see Harris Yulin kind of on both sides of this conflict in his career.
That's so. I mean, I'll talk a bit more about him when we get to the acting, because again, I kind of checked him out since. Obviously, I knew him from genre stuff like Buffy and Ghostbusters, etc. But I had a chance to check out sort of clips and things of him doing Broadway plays and the like, and he's a very, very good actor. And,
absolutely amazing.
And apparently, he was good friends with Armin Shimmerman, but as of the recording of the Delta Flyers episode on Duet, Armin said that they hadn't seen each other for a while, which is kind of sad because now I know, he passed away not long after that, so I get the feeling he probably didn't get a chance to, reconcile or meet up one last time, which kind of sucks. But yeah, it's a big loss as well because he's a heck of an actor, honestly. But again, just adds an extra layer of sadness to a very heavy episode, unfortunately. Yeah, just to give you the backstory, I'm kind of similar to you when it comes to my first experiences because I didn't like DS9 at all for the first couple of seasons. I was very much a next gen person, and I don't know, I was already the idea was kind of off-putting to me, like, oh, you're staying on a station and it's not just Starfleet and you're not going anywhere and whatever. And I'm sorry, but those first 2 seasons are really rough going.
They really are, Mike. I agree.
I mean, if you're a fan, fair enough. And there are some episodes in there that I like. Don't get me wrong. It's not, it's not a complete write-off. And I would say the same thing about Next Gen, by the way. Those first 2 seasons are flipping rough going, but you get to some great stuff after the first couple of seasons. And but I do remember, like you, I feel such a basic bitch saying it, but what won me over was the kind of Dominion War thing. So I got dragged into the show with that and got interested, in entirely the way that was probably designed to do. So I started watching at that point around season 3-ish. And then, like you, I went back and watched other things because I was like, well, if I get through this, it'll give me the backstory and I know that what I'm coming to is stuff I'm going to enjoy. And like you said, just slogging through season 1 and then you get to this episode and it's like, wow. Where did that come from? Just not that there's not other episodes of season 1 that I enjoy, but nothing on the level of this where I'm like, whoa, this is like incredible, so powerful. And like you said, the fact that it was basically made because they'd spent all their money elsewhere and they had to do a bottle show, so it was almost accidental in some ways, just makes it all the more impressive that that they could do so much. And because I'm not usually a fan of that kind of thing, of just like, oh, you've got a TV show, but you've got to save money, so it's just 2 people in a room talking. But you get 2 good actors and great material, and poof, it works.
Well, we had one good actor at least.
You have 2 fantastic actors in this. Do you?
Oh, we'll get into that. We'll get into that in the acting phase.
Oh, I have a lot of information about that, and you better be nice to Nana, bless, because she went fucking through it for this episode. So, yeah.
I'm not going to be nice, Mike. I'm just warning you.
That poor woman, honestly, if you knew what she'd went through, seriously. I'll explain it later. Like I said, I happen to know the backstory from the podcast. So anyway, we'll start by talking about the writing, because that's just the first thing on my list, and because I have a little bit of information for you about that. First of all, the plot of this episode was inspired by Robert Shaw's 1967 stage play, The Man in the Glass Booth, which tells of a Jewish man accused of being a Nazi war criminal. In fact, Leonard Nimoy had starred in a production of the play years earlier. That play, in turn, is based on actual events that took place during World War II, or after World War II, like the Nuremberg trials and the hunt for top-ranking Nazi officials who escaped Germany and made up new identities for themselves, like Adolf Eichmann. Noted Michael Piller, Ira Bear gave us the twist that gave it the Man in the Glass Booth kind of feeling, where the guy isn't who he says he is, but is doing it for more noble reasons. And lastly, this is one of only a few DS9 episodes that doesn't actually have a subplot. The A story, B story formula had been used extensively in the series up to this point and was obviously used many times throughout the later seasons and the franchise. And again, it's one of those weird things that once you hear that, you're like, oh yeah, there is no B plot. It's all about this. So, yeah. And I have to say, that's my first and kind of only real bugbear with this episode, is that when you're dealing with episodic TV that you kind of have the scenes for certain characters where it's like they need to pick up their residual check. And I freaking hate the scene with Quark in this episode. I think it completely kills any momentum and tension you have in the episode.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about my thoughts of the writing, and some of the writing's good and some of the writing's bad. And that is an example of the writing being bad. And I understand that contractually you have to get all the main players in somehow. And the
never
way
seemed to worry them when it came to Sir Rock Lofton, though, by the way. He was left out of multiple
he was
episodes.
A child. There's different rules there. But but the way they did it with O'Brien and the way they did it with, especially with Quark, were both very like.
Oh yeah. The O'Brien thing ties into the next episode, though. But yeah, it's kind of a shame.
Yeah,
it doesn't
but
really belong here.
It kills what's happening. Both of those moments. And at least the moment where they worked in Jadzia was organic and felt natural, and it was part of the story. And the thing with Quark, and I understand wanting to inject moments of levity, which is kind of, well, you think they like to gamble? I get why they did that. And I don't take issue with that line, but the scene itself was so inappropriate.
Yeah, I have to agree.
And poorly written, frankly, because I think better writers could have found a better way to work in the main characters. If you're going to do that, you have one of those staff meeting scenes, and boom, everybody's in, and you're done.
It's kind of hard to work Quark into one of those.
They could have figured out a reason. But that being said, some of the writing's really good, but some of the writing's, even in the scenes with Kira and Maritza, some of that writing's bad. Some of that writing is carried by the performance, I'm sorry to say.
Oh. Like, I have to ask, but what like an example of what? Because I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was especially bad. But by all means.
Just the wording of some of the dialogue between them was really unnatural in the in the way it was written. I'm like, people don't speak like that. But it's saved by the delivery.
Yeah, you got to remember as well that it's being pitched as a melodrama, so naturally it's very heightened, and I think you kind of have to go in accepting that to start with. It's not going to necessarily be naturalistic because you're dealing with really big, heady themes. And you even start the episode with that. As soon as Kira starts mentioning, the crimes and going into detail about what they are and everything, it's kind of like, all right, we're going there then. Okay, so this isn't going to be a subtle episode.
That doesn't mean the writing has to be bad. The writing can be melodramatic and still be natural.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anything bad myself in it, but I don't know what you're referring to. I would imagine probably stuff early on because it takes a while to get to the point. And I do kind of hate the stupid friggin', oh, I'm not him. No, I am. Oh, yes, I am.
And also from a writing perspective, and this is not just this episode, this is a great example of it. This is the writing of the series overall. Why does Odo get a pass? Odo worked with the Cardassians. He was a collaborator, and he is a fascist. By his very nature, is a fascist. I have never understood why Odo gets a pass from the Bajorans and continues to be in charge of security and is not put up for war crimes.
Because Odo was fair.
No, he wasn't. Do you not remember when he killed all those people just because he wanted to wrap up a case? They did a whole episode about that.
Is that common knowledge, though?
Yes, there's an entire episode about it.
Fair enough. I can't say I'm particularly invested one way or the other. I've never questioned it, but I also wouldn't argue with you with the other side of that.
Plus, I'll never forgive him for what he did to Rom. But anyway.
When was this? Like season 6 or something?
Yeah, even so. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Odo's a fascist, just like the Cardassians supposedly were. And he should be held accountable for it. That's all I'm saying. And that's bad writing.
I can't disagree, but I feel very similarly about the Dominion in the, the kind of like, okay, we're all friends. We signed a peace treaty and we've cured you and everything. So off you go. Like, how many people did they kill? Guys. Oh, it's okay. They're good now. Don't worry about it. But that's Star Trek, isn't it? You kind of got to draw a line at a certain point, and yeah, it's very arbitrary. It seems at times, but yes, in an episode like this, I guess that stands out like a sore thumb.
It did to me.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I don't necessarily have an issue with the writing personally, but yeah, for me, it just comes together and works. But anyway, what about you, Thomas? Any thoughts on the writing that you wanted to chuck in?
Well, now I don't want to say anything because I'm afraid I want to get fussed at. But
oh, don't worry, I'll keep her back. Vean, behave.
I mean, obviously there's some stuff in there that for me, it didn't catch my attention to where it like pulled as being bad writing. Just part of the episode. But as far as like the scenes between, Mariska and Kira, I mean, the acting there was just, outstanding. I mean, that's the performance that you're watching. That's what you're looking at. And for me, like I said, I didn't catch necessarily a thing in terms of the writing with it. I mean, for my purposes, but I mean, I guess I could see how someone who's a little more discerning might catch some of that stuff and have some issues with it. Because I think I was looking at some reviews and stuff, and I was like, I saw plenty of reviews that kind of bashed Nana for her performance, and I'm just sitting there going, I thought she was good. I mean, I thought she played it well. I thought it was tremendous, so to each their own, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things. But again, we'll get with that on when we talk about the acting. Yeah, there's a couple of things in the writing that kind of bug me, but they're such small things. But I mean, I have to mention something. So yeah, the first thing is just the questions that it raises about chain of command, which they never really explain at the start of DS9. Like, okay, the Bajorans took over this abandoned station, invited the Federation because they couldn't control it themselves. But in this episode, it's kind of like Kira says, oh, I take responsibility for whatever happens. So the Federation is completely absolved. I'm like, how does that work? So she can basically do what she wants, like murder, whatever, and just be like, well, I took responsibility for it. So the Federation's fine.
Well, I don't know. The Supreme Court just said that Trump can do that. So I guess it works.
Dear God, that's a good point. Yeah, okay. That was a depressing real world allegory to bring up, but yeah, you have a point. But yeah, no, I've never understood that. Like, who's in charge? I mean, I get it's a joint operation, but surely the Federation are still culpable if something happens on their station, to a degree at least, you know?
Well, I mean, there's always someone that's going to be held accountable, no matter how you look at it. And I think it's just maybe demonstration of Cisco trying to place faith in Kira to, do the job she needs to do. But again, if she for some reason happens to step out, I mean, he's there to obviously rein it back in if that was the case.
But I also think that was an instance, and maybe I'm the only one who read it this way, of Kira just saying whatever was necessary to put him at ease, even if it was not necessarily true. She's like, no, I got this. Whatever happens, it's on me. It's not on you. It's fine. I got that, kind of in order to let him allow her to handle it,
No, I think first season Kira truly believes that they're in charge, though, and she kind of sees the station as an extension of their government. Like, she even says, like, even Cisco kind of has to admonish her with, like, yo, Minister Koval is not in charge of the station. I am, because she just seems to think, oh, it's our government, so clearly we're in charge, but they're not. So but then she has the nerve to be like, oh, the Federation has no right to telling us how to treat our prisoners. It's like, yo, you invited us. I mean, it's all kind of minor nitpick in the writing, but it came up a little bit. What was I going to say? I never really understood why this Maritza character did the ruse in the first place. I get that the kind of the point is, oh, it would have been so much more delicious for you to discover it. So I thought, why ruin the surprise for you and everything? And it's kind of like the performance almost sells it, fair enough, but then when you actually stop and think about it, it's like, how stupid and complicated was this plan?
See, that's what I mean about the writing, Mike. There's writing in this that is good. I'm not saying it's all bad, but I'm saying there's writing in this that doesn't work without the performance to carry it.
Yeah, but I think the performance does. It gets away with it, but you're right.
Oh, I agree. The performance absolutely does, but if you just sat down and read the script, you'd be going, this could use some editing,
Yeah. There's certainly a couple of moments, especially early on, where it's just like somebody has said, we need to make 45 minutes out of this. Can you stretch it? Maybe, and it's kind of, all right, okay. But again, you have to do that, I suppose, if that's what you're doing. So,
well, Star Trek didn't allow much of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if they wrote it, it was said. So they didn't get around to that point till probably the last few years. That if it was on paper, it's what you said. So I don't think there was much stretching it if they needed to. It's just how they kind of wrote it out.
Oh, no, not so much that. I think like that there's not. I don't want to criticize what is here, but I don't think there's necessarily enough here for a 45-minute episode, if you know what I mean. So it seems like the first kind of 10 minutes or so are very, we need to stretch this out as long as we can. So we need to kind of, the reveal of who he really is and what's actually going on and everything. It's like, it's played quite well in the regard that it gives people a chance to do their job and uncover the mystery and whatever else, but it also feels totally unnecessary. Like, this character has went to the trouble of making himself look like Gulda Heel with, the cosmetic surgery and everything, but it takes him like half of the episode before he fully acknowledges, like, oh, well, yes, it is me.
That's the point, though. I mean, you have a guy who's conscientious in the fact that he couldn't do anything or enough to stop his own people from the atrocities they were committing, and felt the best way to hold them accountable, I guess in this sense, you would say politically, was to, for lack of a better term, impersonate Goldar Hill to try to have himself put on trial so Cardassia could be held accountable for what they've done and maybe change the way that they are. I mean, it's not for that kind of race that's unsustainable, and obviously down the road you see where it leads them. So, but there are, that's one person's idea of how to maybe, for lack of a better term, be a patriot, do his part to try to help his people be something better.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm fully on board with all that. I just don't get, like I said, if he went to all that trouble, like, his plan falls apart if they don't think, oh, it's Gulda Heel, and he has to rely on them finding that out, and it just feels kind of stupid not to.
Well, it would have worked if it wasn't for Odo.
Well, what I think, Mike, is that it would be obvious for somebody like Darheel is not going to want to get caught. So it would seem that he would lie about who he is because he doesn't want to get caught, but secret. It's like, I knew that she knew that he knew that I knew kind of thing. But so he's playing
I
3
see.
steps ahead. You know what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
He's playing the character of Darheel, and the character of Darheel would not. Maritza is playing the character, not the actor.
Yeah.
He's playing this character. He worked with him. He knew he's not going to want to get caught because he is a war criminal. So he has to initially be like, oh no, I'm not Darheel. No, of course not. You know, because
I see.
He would have wanted to get away with it.
That does clarify it in my head, but it's just, that kind of does my head in, that kind of bluff and double bluff and triple bluff and, you know, oh, I'm Maritza. No, I'm Darheel. It turns out I am Maritza the whole time. And it's just kind of like, oh, all right.
Cardassians would be excellent poker players.
Yeah, but by the end of it, I would not be as forgiving as Kira. At the end, I'd just be like, you know what? If I don't give a fuck who you are, my head's done in. I'm just going to kill you anyway.
That's very Bajoran of you, Mike.
It's clearly, obviously I'm kidding. It's literally the opposite of the message of the episode. Yeah. But yeah, I'd be very ticked off. I wouldn't be like, oh, what a noble thing you were willing to do. I'd be like, you messed me around for freaking 2 days. Any idea how much my head's done in from all of your nonsense? Get off. Lost all of my notes here. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's things that I really like that it kind of, again, it touches on but doesn't get into in terms of the kind of fictional ramifications. So it never occurred to me that, like, when Kira is talking about war criminals and Maritza, as Darheel says, well, how can we be war criminals? There wasn't a war. You'd like to believe there was a war because then you could have the glory of fighting back, but there was no war.
That is good writing. That is good writing.
Exactly. Because that also means that it also means he can turn it back on her and be like, by the way, that makes you a terrorist because there was nothing declared. And she kind of doesn't have a comeback to that as such. So, being critical of that, but then her being able to, well, nothing justifies genocide. I'll call it just a day's work, blah, blah, blah. It's all quality. I mean, we'd be here all day just quoting the script, but I like that it actually got a chance to really go into that. And it's things that, again, hadn't occurred to me. Like, oh, of course, there was no war declared. So technically speaking, yeah. Anyway, what did you think about that, Thomas? Did you pick up on any of that stuff?
In terms of
just the kind of the nature of what the occupation was and how, like I said, we talk a lot about this episode. Oh, you're going to be tried as a war criminal, but there wasn't actually a war because Bajor just immediately surrendered.
I mean, yeah, because obviously the villains never view themselves as the villains. You know, they're the heroes of their own story. So, again, like I said, and that's why I think a lot of this episode kind of helps spread out. Of course, they do it further along in the series too, but just, you know, the ramifications of, you know, the relationship between the Cardassians and the Bajorans, and, you know, what it actually was, which, like you said, for, you know, is, you know, genocidal. You mean you're killing. Now, obviously, you didn't kill them all out because you using them for your own means. But if some die along the way, hey, that's fine. So yeah, it definitely touches on a lot of that kind of stuff.
For sure. And it's uncomfortable, as you said, because it's asking you to invite the comparison that the Cardassians didn't really view the Bajorans as people or, you know, viewed them as objects or playthings or whatever else. And it's very
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it.
The writing here also brings up another interesting point that they don't touch on too much through the series, but where Maritza talks about the Cardassians being the masters, and then he's like, your new Federation masters. And here's the thing, he's not wrong.
Yeah,
they are.
That was my point. Yeah.
And the Federation may be more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like root beer?
Benevolent. It might be a more benevolent master, but it is still a master. And the whole thing was trying to get them to join the Federation. It's that imperialist, colonialist sort of mentality that the Federation has, that everybody's kind of okay with it because they're the good guys. But because the Cardassians were more of a brutal master, you know, but the Federation is still telling Bajor how to run itself. It's still telling them what to do. It's still telling them how to feel. It's still trying to, you need to come be part of us. We'll protect you. We'll protect you. Come join us. Come be part of us. We're better than you, actually. Like that's the mentality there. And we don't ever really talk about it. They do once in a while, but I thought it was really...
Oh, they fully talk about it. That's what DS9, that's why I hate it. It fully goes into why the Federation suck, which it doesn't, by the way.
But not because of Bajor. They go into why the Federation sucks for a number of reasons. But the fact that they never talk about how Bajor is essentially an extension of the Federation and not its own thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's not how the Federation operates. Come on now.
Yeah, I think reading between the lines, that's basically what the likes of the Maquis and stuff are arguing against, isn't it? It's like, I forget the episode of the context, but there's the episode where somebody says, it might even be Eddington, says, oh, you're worse than the Borg. At least they announce the fact that they're going to assimilate you. You just kind of work your way in and try to, and it's like, all right, but, which is why, again, I fully dislike most of DS9 and in terms of the broader strokes, and I don't agree with the way the Federation acts at all. For starters, I just would not have bothered turning up to co-run the station with the Bajorans. Like, nope. For starters, I'm pretty sure that's a huge breach of the Prime Directive, but whatever. And I don't think they tell the Bajorans what to do in terms of their planet, but, it is a Federation station, so they have rights when it comes to running that, I guess. But yeah, it's a tricky issue, whichever way you look at it, unfortunately. But yeah, there's certainly, I mean, you kind of have to feel like the Federation would leave if they were asked, hopefully.
And they did. Like I said,
I mean,
Cisco had them do it.
They kind of did, but I think the Federation is every bit as imperialist as Cardassia. That's all I'm saying.
A lot of people do, but I don't agree. I think that's a misrepresentation that I think shows like DS9 played into wrongly, frankly. But again, I suppose they needed drama. I don't see it that way at all. I see it more of a socialist utopia than a kind of imperialist.
Well, here's the thing. I think the Cardassians are also socialist. So, it's
really?
Looking out. Oh, yeah. Looking out for your own people, taking care of your people, everybody having access to things. Yeah.
That's very nationalist as opposed to socialist, really, isn't it, though?
Taking care of everybody?
Taking care of just your own people.
Yeah, but that's what the Federation does.
It's really not.
It is. It is.
Surely
They're not over there taking care of the Romulans and taking care of the Ferengi.
They literally did that when the Romulan sun went supernova.
Oh my God, I don't even count that. That was bullshit.
They were there, though. They did it.
They did it to try and expand, not because it was the right
thing. No,
they
didn't. They did it because
yes,
it was a refugee
Yes,
effort.
they did, Mike.
No, I'm not buying that. They've been
Neither am I.
The rescue on more than one occasion, definitely.
You are both so naive.
No, I think you're just very cynical. But anyway, that's got almost nothing to do with this episode in terms of the writing. I was just kind of curious at, just another weird division of things. But anyway, so yeah, before we go to the acting, is there anything else you wanted to say about the writing? Because I don't really have anything else to add to it, to be honest.
No.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, on the subject of the acting then, I'll open it up to you guys first of all. Did you have anything you wanted to bring up or anyone you wanted to mention first?
The acting is what makes this episode. The directing, the writing, none of it would work without the performances. Here's the thing. With Renee, with Nana, those two in particular, they tend to overact 98% of the time. But the 2% of the time they're not overacting, they're really good. So, and here's the thing. With a character like Odo, the overacting works because you have a character that is trying to learn to be not human, but an organic, bipedal solid, right? So this is a character that doesn't know these kind of social cues. So for him to overact makes sense because it works for the character. But when you have Kira overacting, it's really irritating. But I will say that when she's not overacting, she's really good. Like in this episode, the scene where she's sitting in Odo's office with her feet up and he brings her the drink. Those moments, Nana, it was wonderful because she was not overcompensating. She was being subtle. She was being calm. She was being the way people would act when they're processing, right? So because she's processing, she's not even in a rage at this point. She's just like in shock almost. And so she's very good in that moment. And I will say Nana has going for her eyes. She's these beautiful, deep, expressive eyes. And I think when she uses them to her advantage, it is very effective. But a lot of the time, she's a hammy over actor.
Okay. Fine. You're entitled to the opinion. I gotta say I disagree. But yeah.
I mean, equally though, you get into Harris Yulin, who, when he starts with the shouting and the waving his arms around, the first couple of times, again, it took me back to that judge in Ghostbusters. So it was hard for me to go, is he for serious right now? Like, is he being real? And
anyway.
Now watching it with a more critical eye, because I've been able to, make that distinction. Again, he, like last week when we were talking about Maxwell, Harris Yulin knows exactly when to modulate his voice. So he is a master of that. So when he's being Darheel, when he's being Maritza, being Darheel, so there's extra layers here, right? Like it's like an artichoke. So you have an actor playing a character who's playing a character, but who's not an actor. So you have this sort of, well, I'm your nightmare, I'm waving his arms, and then when they're talking though, when he really gets into being that really malicious, what you call genocide, I call it day's work. He didn't yell that line. He didn't wave his arms around. He nailed it. It was so pathological, so I think there are so many layers to this performance. And I remember a conversation with Nana where she was talking about how she didn't think the episode was going to work because he was having a hard time with the makeup and he was having a hard time with the dialogue, and she didn't think he was playing it right, and da-da-da. And then when they put it all together, when they edited it all together, how amazing the performance was. And I just think it would have been interesting to have seen what she saw doing multiple takes and playing opposite this person and seeing it from her perspective. But I do think he was particularly good. I have to tell you, this is an episode where I think Renee was particularly good as well. And sometimes he's, like I said, sometimes I feel he really overacts. But I think the scene where he's talking to Kira and he's like, well, maybe you shouldn't talk about your personal history. And she's like, I didn't. And that moment of realization where he's going, no, wait, this doesn't make any sense. I thought Renee was also especially good because, again, he's being more subtle. Film allows you to have micro expressions that don't work on the stage. And maybe that's part of the reason that I feel like Nana and Renee tend to overact, because they were stage actors. But then again, so were a lot of the other people, and they're just fine. So, but when you're playing for a camera, you can let your eyes do the talking. You can let these little micro movements on your face that are going to be picked up by camera, but they wouldn't be picked up by a stage audience. And so when they allow themselves to do that, as in this scene, they're very, very good.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, well, before I give my thoughts, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of say what you thought about the acting in the episode then, Thomas. Did you agree or disagree with me? And is there anyone that we haven't mentioned that you wanted to bring up before I chime in with my thoughts?
No, I mean, I think obviously for this episode, it's really mostly focused on the scenes with, Kira and Maritza. That's your focus of the episode. Like I said, I thought it was out, I just thought it was outstanding between the two, so obviously two very good parts, I thought, as far as, the quote, where he's going on and he's, he starts, because he's trying to convince her, no, I am Darheel. He's like, I'm alive. I'll always be alive. It's Maritza who's dead. Maritza who was good for nothing, but cowering under his bunk and weeping like a woman, who every night covered his ears because he couldn't bear to hear the screaming for mercy of the Bajorans. And just that scene and stuff was just, and he's crying by the end of that. It was just so good and powerful. Then, of course, the end of the episode, where I think the Bajoran's name was Canon. It's that they've resolved him. They're sending him back to Cora 2, I think it was, and comes up, stabs him in the back, and he's like, "Why? He wasn't Darheel. Why? He's Cardassian. That's reason enough." And she's like, "No, it's not. That's realization. Like, you have bad Cardassians, but not all Cardassians are bad."
Can I interject? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that is another absolutely appallingly bad performance, and that character should have been recast.
I agree.
Because there is Nothing going on with that actor. There is no hatred behind his eyes. There is no venom to his voice. There is nothing.
I found him in that opening scene. I found him so camp in the first scene when he's in the drunk tank.
There's nothing to him. No. It's just like, dude, get somebody who can show hate.
Yeah.
Like, you are literally going to go stab this guy in the back and because of who he is, and you don't care. And this guy's just, he's a Cardassian. And there's just nothing behind the eyes. You got to let the eyes do the acting. And this guy has nothing going on for him.
I always feel bad criticizing actors, but I have to say, since it is technically what we're here for, like what is a hit and what is a miss, I think that performance, he missed the mark completely. Like I said, it came off at the start as just camp. And yes, the moment at the end has the impact that it does because of Harris and Nana and the dialogue, and because he doesn't really get much to say. But yeah, that character, because you've built him up earlier in those scenes, I would have liked somebody who could play it a little bit. And they talk about that on the Delta Flyers and say, oh, like Armin Schuman's like, I don't have a problem with it because racism is never subtle, so he can be over the top. And I'm like, no, really? That's
no, Armin is quite wrong. They could have gotten a good actor, and they didn't.
Yeah. Although I do, like I said, it's worth noting that, like, as Thomas was kind of hinting, the end of the episode basically leaves you with the same message that the last episode we reviewed did, The Wounded, where it's like, yes, there are bad Cardassians, but racism towards everyone is pretty much just as bad. And we need to kind of get past that. So it's kind of weird that, like, by pure accident, I didn't design that, but that's kind of the overlying message of both stories at the end of them after those 45 minutes in each case, I
think that's going to be true of a lot of Cardassian-centric episodes.
Not all of them, but we'll see.
I didn't say all of them. I said a lot.
Maybe a lot, but yeah, I think it's going to be very hard to find some redeeming features for Gul Dukat towards the end of the series. Anyway. But no, in terms of the acting, I have to say, like I said, I didn't like that performance. I'm glad you kind of mentioned that because I didn't love it. I actually thought Avery Brooks was good in a very limited amount of work in this episode because I find he's capable of a little bit overacting and going too broad. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's justified in, like, for example, Far Beyond the Stars. I think it works. It's fully justified to go, to 11 or whatever, and you're fine with it. Sometimes it just doesn't quite deserve it.
Is it that, or did we just get used to him? Because I can't tell anymore.
Oh, no, I can tell when he's being... I mean, there's moments that are really powerful that he can...
Oh, no, I'm just saying... I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
No, but I was going to say, like, the thing about this episode I like is that he's got difficult things to contend with. And again, he doesn't overplay them. So, like, one of my favorite lines in the episode is when, like, Dukat's trying to talk, his way around it. Like, oh, I'm sorry, this Bajoran fascination with alleged crimes is just so distasteful. And Sisko's just like, well, I would imagine if you're a Bajoran, so was the occupation. But he doesn't scream it or say it like an enemy. It's just kind of very matter-of-factly. And it's like, I can almost see the meme of people behind him. Like, oh, that got him. Kind of thing. It was just so like, oh. But on the subject of that, I thought Mark Alaimo, very, very small role in this episode, but really good, especially for just somebody who's on a screen the entire time, playing Dukat and just keeping that presence, in the ether.
Mark really owned that character. I mean, from go, Mark owned that character, and I can't think of a moment with Dukat that was a bad performance. I think I've seen Mark in a few other things, and he's pretty good. Like I said in the last episode, he blew me away as Hamlet. It was absolutely phenomenal. But he has that magnitude, right? He has that swagger, and he really took that character and said, "This is my show, actually." And he really. So even in these times where it's just him on screen, attention Bajoran workers kind of style. He really owns it. So, yes, I agree with you.
But what impressed me was the conversation with Odo, because dialogue-wise, again, it's a hill to climb, and it could have so easily been played really weird when he's kind of like, no, you're mistaken. I attended his funeral. No, it's definitely not him. No, like this could easily have been played so petulant, if you know what I mean, but he doesn't play it like that. He just plays it like, no, you're mistaken. No, okay, I'll give you the codes, whatever. We'll get it from there. And I'm like, this could have gone so wrong with a bad actor. But like I said, I do love, as much as I hate the character because you're supposed to, I love the performance that Mark gives across all of the 7 seasons of DS9. And like I said, it's
absolutely
nice to have him there as the representative and just keeping that kind of, there's still tension between the Federation and the Cardassians.
And this is a great example of how good acting can save bad writing.
Completely, yeah.
You know, especially when you get into like Ducat's later arc, you know, and I know a lot of people have criticism of that, and I have my, you know, I think there's pros and cons. Won't get into it.
Sure. Actually, a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to just add to the chorus that just praises Harris Yulin. I think, like you said, he's so good. But a few things that I wanted to note down. When Kira first sees him in the infirmary, there's like a wry half smile that you only pick up if you know the episode, if you've seen it once before. That he's kind of like, I've been recognized. Good. This is the start of my plan, kind of thing. The moment, like, this can't have been in the script, so it must be the direction or the actor. But the moment when he's talking about I await execution and then uses his napkin to kind of cover his head, like, kind of, it's just so glorious. And then the scene that breaks me every time is when he's just breaking, his insanity finally breaks through and he plays Darheel to the hilt that then ultimately reveals his own shame at being who he is. And it's just such a good scene. It's so powerful. It completely wrecks me every time. But on the other side, I have to slightly stick up for Nana, not to fall out with you, Vean, but I thought she was great in the episode as well. I didn't see it as overacting. I think she's a character that kind of has this heavy backstory, and it's difficult to kind of see what that would do to you, I guess. But in any case, with this episode, I did have a couple of quotes I wanted to get to. So first of all, Nana has said about the episode, the action comes out of big issues on this show. There's action and intrigue, but the writing lets us deal with issues we're not embarrassed to commit ourselves to as actors and people. On a sitcom, very often it's, should I let Johnny stay out after midnight or not? It's an important issue, but not quite so much as Holocaust victims and facing evil in one person and how you deal with that, which is one thing I had to deal with in Duet. It was kind of harrowing to have to deal with that subject matter every day, but the harder it is, the more rewarding it is. Visitor further commented, Duet was a wonderful episode. She was of the opinion the episode's making was a case where, due to limitations, the people involved had needed to start being more creative. And yeah, I agree. I also have to say that having listened to her on the Delta Flyer, she does mention that she used to kind of have this thing of being very method in the acting. So she mentions that it was like she was taking this all home with her at the time, and it was really difficult. And she said it was horrible because I was having Kira's dreams, and when you're saying these words, they're not just words; it's kind of living in your head. And she says, I wouldn't do that now. There's better ways to do that as an actor. You don't have to be Daniel Day-Lewis or whatever. And she started giving kind of TED Talks about that and acting and stuff. But yeah, kind of feel for her.
That just proves my point. Thank you, Mike, because when you see bad acting, it's always a fit actor. Every goddamn time. It always is, because they can't do it without having to get that deep into it.
To go there, yeah.
And
okay.
That's not a healthy way to live your life, and it's not a healthy way to make art, and it actually doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, she would probably agree with you in that regard then as well, and as you said, it's not something she would do now. But I found the performance really emotional and touching for whatever reason. I mean, it wasn't the moment that got me, it was Harris Yulin that did, other than the last line. But yeah, the last thing I want to say about the acting is just kudos again for a very small part to Terry Farrell, who, as you said, they work her in well, thankfully, on the couple of occasions that she gets to do something at the start and in the kind of middle of the episode. So I was relieved to see her used properly. Cool. As we always say, the direction when it comes to kind of television, there's not really a lot to always say. I will say, from a production viewpoint, director of photography Marvin Rush opined that the director Jim Conway came in and did a great job. He was real professional, had a difficult episode without a lot of action or movement, a small story, but did it really well. If you are interested in direction and all of the kind of technical imitations and, you know, who does what and where all of the cameras placement and why that matters, do listen to the Delta Flyers podcast, because Robert Duncan McNeil is a fantastic director and he knows very minute detail to stuff that would bore the crap out of me if I was to listen to it for, you know, a very long time. But he knows his stuff, and so if you want to know about the direction of this episode, do go and check out that podcast. It's going to be better than listening to ours. I'm not a director. Yeah. Any thoughts on the direction then before I move us along from here?
I do. I actually do on this. I know I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it feels like a play. It feels like a one-act play. And I can see what they mean. I think there are other episodes, which we're going to talk about, that I feel are more in that vein. To me, it was very reminiscent of Jonathan Demme, the director of Silence of the Lambs, in that you're having this two perspectives, right? And you're intercutting between this side and this side. And the way when you film something like that and you want to get into somebody's head, you're just doing this cut of really their face, their dialogue, their reaction, flip, their face, their dialogue, their reactions. And you're not doing a lot of other things, which are subconsciously getting the audience in the viewpoint of the two characters specifically. And I think they did that very well. And again, I always say this, without getting their fingerprints all over it.
Yeah, definitely. I have to. This is kind of related to the directing as well, but the only note I have on the sort of VFX production design is that I was so impressed with the Cardassian makeup in this episode, specifically on Maritza, because there's an awful lot of really close-up kind of shots that the director goes for, so it has to hold up under very tight scrutiny, and it really does. And I was like, that's impressive. You can't really see the joins, and if that had been a bad job, if you could see where the latex was applied or where the hairline was or whatever, it's going to immediately throw you out of a dramatic moment, and it doesn't, thank God.
So yeah. What you're talking about on the prosthetics is called feathering on the edges, and that's how you get them really, really light and thin and light and thin and light and thin until you can basically blend it into the skin. And I agree with you that this was a particularly good job. There were a couple of spots on the neck prosthetic that when he moved a certain way, they kind of folded weird. But overall, I think the prosthetics were beautiful, just really well done. And they really, because Cardassian, the eye ridges, right? They're always different. They're different, just like humans have different features. Their ridges are different. And I feel these really, really highlighted his very light, pale eyes and allowed for a lot of shadow and expression. So I think the actual casting of the mold and the sculpt was very, very good and really went with his face very well. I will say there were moments where the lighting put me off. There were moments that there was something in that cell where the lighting was green and it would hit his prosthetic and it just made the color so weird. There were a couple of times I was like, oh, I really don't care for this lighting. And it actually, I found it distracting.
Okay. That's a fair criticism. I can't really argue with that. I didn't necessarily notice, or if I did, I probably just blanked it out. But yeah, that's understandable. What about you then, Tommy? Any thoughts on the directing or VFX production design?
Not anything that's already been mentioned. I agree with. I thought it was a very good job as far as what they had to do and stuff. So
cool, awesome. Well, before we wrap things up with our thoughts, then I do always have to give the audience the chance to respond. Unlike last week, this is the polar opposite. Last week we had next to nothing on the episode The Wounded. This week I have a lot of thoughts on this episode from the audience. As you know, I always put out on social media, what did you think of this episode, and a few random question prompts to try and get the interaction. So I'm just going to dive straight in.
Incoming transmission.
First of all, Roman Reisner on my personal Facebook just says 10 out of 10. Let's see. Over on Discord, Classic Trek Talk, Frank Fury 74 says absolutely a good episode, 4.5 out of 5. From the Facebook group Star Trek Family, Greg Cox, the author, hello Greg, says the first truly great DS9 ep and an early indicator of the heights the show could attain at its best. Alana Whitestar says definitely the best episode of season 1 and one of the best DS9 episodes, period. Yep. Keith Kane says the episode showcased the first inkling of the greatness that DS9 was. Kellen Massett, fun name, says 6 stars. David Boucher says in the top 5 episodes of DS9 easily. From the group Red Shirts and Runabouts, Brian Stibe, sorry if I've got that name wrong, says easily 5 stars. Not just one of the best episodes of Trek, but of television in general. Over on Threads, Miranda Wheeler 79 says, I think Duet is a strong story as it effectively forces Kira to confront her own bigotry towards the Cardassians. Acting_Steve says, a stunning episode that is ostensibly a stage play. Stellar performances for Nana Visitor and Harris Yulin. To answer your questions, I'm struggling to think of an episode that's as good. I asked, was it the best DS9 episode? Does it make you think? Yes. At its most basic, the question is, do bullies secretly know they're weak? Which is then scaled up to, can oppressors ever atone, and if so, at what cost? I also asked if the ending was inevitable. They said the ending is genius. The role reversal of victim and monster is classic Trek. So yeah. Back to Star Trek Family Group on Facebook. Robert J. Parkinson says, how can this episode be considered anything other than a hit? It was superb. David Russell says, delivers on every level. Nana and Harris are exceptional. Charlotte Josephine says, I love the concept of someone who didn't hurt anybody, who was just a file clerk, still being racked with guilt and feeling like he should be put on trial like any other war criminal because he was assigned to a concentration camp. Yeah. William Johnson has quite a lot of thoughts. Says, I think it's one of the best first season Trek episodes ever made. I rewatched it in honor of Harris Yulin, who recently passed away. It's fair enough. The final moment hit hard when I first watched. Of course, I was a different person then. Coming from TNG, it was an ending that was unexpected. What I love is how much it helped move Kira's character forward. I also wonder how it would have played if Ro Laren had been in the show, as was originally intended. If you didn't know that was going to be the Kira character, but Michelle Forbes didn't do it. I don't think it would have played as well, to be honest. Having Kira be separate from Starfleet allowed for a different take on the reaction. The show doesn't hit as hard, of course, on the later viewings and with the change in television over the past 32 years, I think. I'm going to disagree slightly, but okay. Joe Mac McShane says it's a top 10 episode for the franchise for me. Dan Walp says, I teach with this episode, and out of 5 stars, I give it 100. Don't worry, I don't teach math. Just as well. Back to Red Shirts and Runabout Group. Ryan Levenger says it was an incredible, moving, thought-provoking episode, one of the best of all of Trek, and a dang solid episode of TV in general, and a magnificent specimen of true sci-fi. It was also a gem that showcased in our visitor's depth as an actor. Harris Yulin, who played Maritza, was also phenomenal and delivered some powerful lines and an impactful performance. I still get choked up thinking about Kira's revelation that the war had other less obvious casualties. I loved watching her struggle with the tension between compassion for this man and the hatred for what his people had done. This episode really set her character on a path of growth and maturity. From Star Trek Wholesome Posting, Alexis Canto says, one of the most powerful episodes of any Trek series, as far as I'm concerned. Not only were the performances excellent, but it was a rare highlight in what was otherwise a mediocre season, which asks real-life difficult questions while providing no simple answers. Ronald Brown says, first episode of DS9 that made me fall in love with the series. Then it became my favorite Star Trek show, and Kira my favorite character in it, all starting here. One of Trek's great episodes with some superb acting. Let's see. Marius Zulk says possibly the best episode of all first seasons of Trek. Brandon Lawrence says one of the best episodes, not just of Trek, but of TV. Love the writing and the acting so much, I practically have this episode memorized. This is the show that when new fans ask me about DS9, I tell them to go watch this episode first, even before the pilot, because this is the show that is a perfect thesis statement of what DS9 would be. And that's it, I promise. So yeah, as I said, a lot of thoughts, and none of them really negative, I have to say, for this episode. Awful lot of very high praise. So thank you to everybody who contributed their thoughts and responded on this one. Hopefully you'll all keep coming back as I keep asking on the future weeks. Hey all, this is Editor Mike here, contacting from the future, very Star Trek-y kind of way. As would obviously be quite predictable, I did completely forget to contribute the haiku to this episode as we were recording. Things, as you can hear, if you'd been listening, got very heated, and we were having an interesting debate, and the episode was running long, and it completely slipped my mind. But if you did want to hear the haiku, just in case, I thought, I'll record it and, splice it in when I'm doing my editing. So, without any further ado, this is the haiku for the episode Duet. It is simply, one voice tells a lie, but his tears speak something true. How many will pay? So, yeah, quite deep, not particularly light, fluffy, or funny, but hopefully a good summation of the episode, which is within itself quite heavy. And, over back to me, where we're going to wrap things up with our favourite things and our scores for the episode. So, thanks again, me. Bye. Our wrap up of things, then starting with our favourite character, moment, and line in the episode. Tommy, you're the guest, so I'll ask you first. Do you have a favourite character, a favourite moment or scene, and a favourite line if one comes to mind?
Well, as the line already mentioned, I think, is one of his, just where he's Maritzka is going on about his, trying again to convince, Kira that that's who he is and, is deserving to have whatever happens to him happen to him. So for me in that episode, it's going to be him. I'm in Maritza.
So that's your favorite character, line, and moment, I suppose, probably then, yeah?
For the episode, yes.
Okay, cool. Vean, over to you.
Maritza is definitely my favorite character. Harris Yulin really carries the episode. I think had they put this in the hands of a less gifted actor, this episode would not be as impactful. It would not work just the way it was written, because I do believe the writing needs some tweaking. But they fortunately had a master performer come in and play this character who knew exactly where to modulate, exactly how to build the layers of, as I was saying earlier, somebody who's not an actor pretending to be somebody else, but deep down, and the way he refers to himself as a coward, and yet what he's doing is very, very brave. And as I read somewhere once, bravery is the kindest word for stupid. So he is brave in a way, but I question. Well, we're going to have final thoughts. I'll get to that, I guess, because we're correct. We're going to have final thoughts.
We'll have a conclusion and a score out of 5 to come after this.
Okay, so I'll save that. Favorite scene. I like any of the scenes where he's playing Darhill, where he's really just digging into that evil and that malice. But for me, favorite line is when she asks why he's doing this. And he says, for Cardassia. Cardassia will only survive if it stands before Bajor and admits the truth. My trial will force Cardassia to admit its guilt, and we're guilty, all of us. My death is necessary. I think that line is incredible. And he's not, again, I don't think anything he says in this episode is wrong. I think he's very right about everything he says. And in fact, this is Damar's whole thing later on is like, when Garrick, calls him out, and Kira says, yeah, Damar, who gives those kinds of orders? This is exactly it. We have to admit what we did, or we're never going to get any better.
So yeah, my favorite character, again, it's not going to please you. My favorite character was Kira in this. Kira goes through a lot this episode. We see through her interactions with Sisko and Dax how much that she softened and grown. If you've been watching the first season, by the end of the episode, she's experienced another chapter in that, and Nanar portrays the journey through to that absolutely brilliantly, often when it's not easy or comfortable, at least in my opinion. My favorite moment was the moment when Maritza breaks down and criticizes himself, the walls finally crumbling of his misguided insanity, revealing the guilt that he felt was more perceived than literal. And my favorite line is such blatantly obvious, but it's just so powerful. It's the last line, which is, why he wasn't Dark Heel, why he's a Cardassian, that's reason enough. No, it's not. As much to, I think, Kira herself as anybody else. So yeah, that leads us to where we give our conclusions and our score out of 5 stars. And again, Thomas, you're the guest. Did you want to go first with this?
I will stick with the 4.5 out of 5 stars. So 9 out of 10, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, anything you wanted to add to that, or just the score?
No, the score's fine there.
Fair enough. So yeah, Vean, final thoughts, conclusion, and score out of 5 stars. You've done this before, you know what's to expect.
I really struggled with rating this episode because everybody's going to hate me, but I'm going to say 3.5. I think that's where it lands for me, because I think there were a lot of technical problems, and it's saved by the acting.
Yeah, my conclusion, I think it's safe to say the reception says it all on this one. Often regarded as one of the finest episodes across all of Star Trek, over 1,000 installments, and frequently cited as a great episode of television, full stop. You won't get any disagreement from me. I wouldn't want every episode to be like this, but it's a shining example of what Star Trek can do, and the places it's bold enough to go through a science fiction lens. Though in this case, the real-world parallels are painfully apparent, as they should be. This isn't a narrative that lets you off the hook with a simple, but it's not real, nor should it be. And we definitely shouldn't overlook the absolutely outstanding acting from the Nar visitor, who was reliably excellent, and especially from the late, great Harris Yulin. These words were felt deeply by the performers, and that makes us feel them deeply as they're projected towards us. I don't want to get too pretentious, but I'll say this, TV or sci-fi that feels like it could just as easily be a stage play doesn't always work for me. Sometimes it feels like it's not using the medium to its fullest, but I have no such issue here, and frankly, any minor criticisms vanish in the face of such powerful material and performance. It'll make you think, it'll make you confront things that are not easy, and if you don't cry at any point, check your pulse. This is solid gold. I did give it 5 out of 5, just to be the weird dissenting voice that actually praises the episode. And yeah, so adding those together, dividing by 3, gives a final score for Duet of 4.3 out of 5. So I think it's... I maybe saved the score for something more justifiable on that one.
I didn't cry, Mike.
Well, you have no soul. We all know this. I knew you were going to say that as well. But yeah. Anyway, so I don't know what to do with you sometimes, honestly.
Well, I do have final thoughts that you might find interesting.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I was rewatching this obviously last night with Mr. Lady Vean, who had never seen it, so that was a fun experience. But I question the righteousness of letting Maritza go. There's a saying, if you sit down at a dinner table for 10 and one person at the table is a Nazi, there are 10 Nazis, And yes, he was a file clerk, but he was a file clerk at Auschwitz. And so he is still a war criminal. He is still guilty. And this is one of the things he talks about. And he talks about his guilt. He has guilt because he is guilty. He wasn't Dark Heel, okay? He wasn't Hitler. He wasn't Mengele. He wasn't, Himmler. But he was still at a death camp. And by that extension, still responsible to an extent. And he was not held responsible. He was let go. Did he deserve to be stabbed? No. But he should have been held accountable. Cardassia has to be held accountable, which it ultimately is through very extreme measures. Unfortunately, it had to come to that. But as an American right now, we essentially have concentration camps, and I'm not out there bleeding in the street fighting them. So am I guilty then of being collaborative, of being complicit? Like, at what point do we say, well, I'm not responsible because it wasn't me? And I think they don't do enough of addressing that here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, actually, and I think it's something that if the episode were made today, that would be handled very differently. But I do think that to a certain degree there is a level of, within the fiction of the universe, would there be a chance for Maritza to really stand up and, you know, walk out of there or you know, protest against it or whatever without just immediately being killed himself? And it does kind of half address that with Kira saying, well, look, you're only one person, there's nothing you could have done. You obviously were affected by this, but, you know, it wasn't cowardly. You had to survive or whatever. But yeah,
that just falls back to her essentially saying, well, you were just following orders. And that's never an okay reason. And the fact that in this case, because they explicitly say that later in the series, oh, following orders just isn't good. That's just not a good enough reason. But in this case, Kira's saying, well, you were just following orders. You know?
Yeah, he wasn't. I suppose the justification there would be he wasn't actually doing anything of the negative stuff. I mean, filing the files isn't necessarily going to affect people one way or the other.
It's helping the place run.
I mean, it's helping the place run, but again, that's getting into a really tricky territory. And again, it's something that DS9 will eventually deal with, thankfully.
I mean, and it doesn't even talk about Maritza being subversive in the sense of doing that poorly and making it so fewer people died because he's not filing and he's not doing things right. You know, it's like he was an exemplary. He did the best filing he could absolutely do. You know, so I do think there's a level of responsibility that gets swept under the rug. And I think that's a very dangerous area to get into.
It is, and it comes down to how much you believe if you're not fighting them, you're helping them, you know, and how much do you then, is that just pressurizing people to do something that isn't fair? Do you know what I mean? Because, I don't know, it's really big questions, especially from today, in this day and age, like I said, but you're right, and I agree, and I've always kind of found it a little odd that she's like, oh, off you go. Because you're not, especially considering, I mean, I would have personally found it incredibly distasteful, just the things he says as he's imitating Goldar Heel. I personally would have been really so disgusted and kind of offended by that I'd be like, nah, I'm not going to suddenly pat you on the back and say how courageous you are, because, you know, you were justifying genocide a moment ago, much as you were playing a role or whatever else. It's still very distasteful. So, yeah, there's some awkward stuff in there for sure, but I'd have to hope if it was made today, they'd address some of these other factors. But I don't think it takes away from the episode itself and what it's actually trying to say in regards to, you know, the racism inherent in Kira. And, yeah, the idea that, I don't know, is every single individual guilty? You know, do we have hatred for every German person, for example, because of what happened during the war? Or, you know, where does the line get drawn and where does hatred go too far is the question that was asked this week and last, as I said, in the next Gen episode we reviewed. But these are bigger questions than I'm prepared to give a definitive answer one way or the other, but it's nice that we can explore them through a safe lens with sci-fi, I suppose. Yeah, I have no idea what I was thinking about that. I kind of went round on myself and circled back around to thinking exactly the same nothing that I was saying to start with, but hopefully it made sense.
It made sense.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, any thoughts on that from you, Thomas?
Actually, I think that's kind of what the episode was designed to do. It's designed to be thought provoking. It's designed for you to question the moralities that we face, you know, on war. Like I said, you know, each side has its own atrocities that it may commit either in defense of your country or in trying to take over the country. Looking at the actions that you take. Is every person responsible for the actions of that's taken? Or, I mean, do you give someone not really a pass per se, but I mean, do you condemn them all for the actions that were committed by the soldiers and stuff? I mean, because one was a file clerk, is he equally as guilty as the commander who's execute or giving out the orders? It's a tough subject to broach and discuss because it can elicit so many emotions about it, and you know, who's right and who's wrong, and how do we rectify and justify then the actions that we take as a society in these cases. It's one of the things that sci-fi is really, really good at doing.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, I can't disagree. So hopefully it's at the very least it's given us a chance to explore these things, as I said, at a slightly safer distance than real world kind of concerns and things. So either way, we pan out and wipe our tears, or I do, and I compose myself long enough to thank my great guests for being here and helping with the excellent and thoughtful discussion. First of all, Vean, thanks again for coming and contributing a lot to this episode. And yeah.
I'm so happy to be here talking, all things Cardassian as always.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Any last thoughts or anywhere that you wanted people to find you, or any other projects you want to plug online?
I'm not super active on social media right now, but mostly if I am, it's on Blue Sky at Lady Vean. That's LadyVean. And please, if anybody knows the artist who made my profile picture, I wanted to shout them out and I cannot find who drew it. So I would love to know who did that so I can give them credit. Also, both Mike and Tommy, but the audience as well, please do yourself a favor and go find Arthur Miller's play Incident at Vichy. Just all around brilliant performances by our great Andy Robinson, Renee Auberginois, yeah, and the now late Harris Yulin, and a very timely story relating to both Duet and real world circumstances.
Yeah, cool, fair enough. That makes sense. I'm just trying to get your image up. There we go. Solo layout so that it's big enough for people to see. If anybody knows who did this this fan art, please let us know and we'll shout them out as best we can. So yeah, cool. Yeah, and again, thanks for coming and being part of our first Trek episode, Thomas, after doing Jurassic Park with us on the film podcast. Did you have a good time again?
I did. That was a good episode to have to participate in.
Yeah, hopefully there won't always be this heavy in future if we have you back on, which I'd like to. But and again, don't worry about Vean. I always keep her under control. So.
This is a hard task to do, if not impossible.
I say I have her under control. I just let her get on with it. Really. Fair enough. And did you have anywhere people could find you on the internet, or any projects you want to plug?
I am on the Twitter and the Blue Sky. Mostly on the Twitter, more so than the Blue Sky. Not because of anything in particular. It's just I find myself doing it. But both are at the handle T Labanick, TLABANICK. And if you got anything you want to say to me, hit me up.
Cool. Awesome. And we'll be back next week when we're heading across to the Delta Quadrant to find the USS Voyager and its first officer in particular facing some trouble from their own Cardassian traitor and her alliance with the pesky Timu Klingons. I'm sorry, I mean the Kazon. Until then, keep reaching for the stars in every aspect of life and stay hopeful even when it's hard. After all, remember, we are Starfleet. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
You have been listening to the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast, part of the Hit or Miss Who Trek channel. Hit or Miss Star Trek is hosted by Mike Wilson, scripted, produced, and edited by Mike Wilson, based on an idea by Mike Wilson and Will Templar. Follow us on YouTube, your podcatcher of choice, and our social media. Links to all of these can be found by clicking on the link tree in the episode descriptions. This podcast is a Media Matters original production. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast throughout subspace. We'll be back for another thrilling trek through the stars soon, but for now, hailing frequencies closed.
Try to warp out of here at once, maximum speed.